Here's an example of childhood coming back to you. I find this to be a pretty difficult film to evaluate. On one hand, it is a solid conclusion to the Toy Story trilogy, complete with some good jokes, the good heartfelt moments that are a staple of Pixar's movies, downright intense scenes, good new characters, and the perfect send-off. On the other hand, there may have been more drama than necessary. It felt quite depressing compared to the other two movies, and probably could have used a little more comedy to balance it all out. It was by far the darkest of the trilogy. I think this movie is made more for the adults who grew up with Toy Story. I was one of many kids who was just about Andy's age when the series started, and this movie hits right in the nostalgia. Perhaps not as good as the previous entries, but it still did exactly what it needed to do. For that, I'd say it's a solid conclusion to a solid trilogy. Except there's a fourth one coming out. And now for the other sequel. I won't be making friends here with this placement. A lot of people consider this to be even better than the first one. While I do agree that it is a very solid sequel, I personally feel that the first one was more consistent. It told just the story it needed to tell in its short running time, while developing all of the characters perfectly. As opposed to the next follow-up in the series that focused a little too much on brooding drama, this one was more focused on comedy, which did its job well most of the time, but became a little much. That said, the sequel did an excellent job building on the last movie as opposed to just telling an identical story like most sequels tend to do. New, well-defined characters are introduced, the old ones are developed further while getting more screen time, and new dilemmas are introduced that are inevitable for all toys. Nowhere is this summed up better than in the heartbreaking ballad, When She Loved Me. It asked questions that the first one wasn't ready to ask yet. Still, I thought the first one was better as a standalone film. I was much more engaged in everything going on, and there's just an innocent simplicity to it that this movie doesn't quite manage to duplicate. Nonetheless, it still did exactly what it needed to do. For that, I still consider this one of the best sequels ever. It took me a while to hop on the bandwagon of people who find this movie to be a masterpiece, mostly due to all the hype it was getting. Hype backlash is a very serious thing with these kinds of movies. But it is one of those movies that got better each time I watched it. By now, I can definitely see why so many people are in love with it. The characters are great, the story is solid, the drama is heartfelt, and the comedy is funny. The villain is also pretty effective, despite his rather typical backstory. If there's one thing about the movie I don't entirely agree with everyone on, it's the opening 10 minutes. The part of the movie that everyone has praised to heaven and back. Honestly, I found it a little rushed. It told its story well enough, but everything was happening so quickly that I wasn't as invested as most people were, and the wife's death failed to tear me up like it has so many people. I actually got a little more choked up at the scene before that where the wife is crying in the hospital from her miscarriage. I think if this segment was a little longer, with more time to pace out all of these events, it would have better identified these characters and conveyed just how sad of a loss the wife's death is. But regardless, I have nothing against it overall. I don't think I like this movie as much as others do, but it's still worth coming back to again and again for years to come. A lot of people criticize this movie for essentially teasing them with the mostly silent first half before introducing talking humans for the second half. Honestly, I don't have any issue with that. Sure, it has a pretty typical message about the environment, but it's easy to ignore. I enjoy this movie for the brilliant chemistry between our two main robots. With such little dialogue aside from just saying each other's names, they managed to be one of the most engaging couples in cinema history. I guess I'm a sucker for Pixar's brand of heartfelt whimsy, but I just love the scenes with these two. I also enjoy the other robots, as well as the ship's captain. The scenes with all of the obese people floating around in chairs are kinda silly, but they serve as decent political commentary as well as the message of living life to its fullest, as opposed to having everything spoon-fed to you. And the visuals are gorgeous. The scene where Wally and Eve are floating around in space next to the ship is just so beautifully romantic. I suppose you might consider all of the lovey-dovey crap to get incredibly saccharine, but when the couple works so well together, you can appreciate the heartfelt stuff regardless. I acknowledge this movie's imperfections, but I friggin' love it nonetheless. I'd say this is the movie where Pixar officially entered its golden age and worked its way toward becoming the tour de force that it was so well known as in the 2000s. The comedy is toned down compared to Pixar's previous films, but there are still plenty of amusing and even quite hilarious moments. The drama is, for the most part, very well done, though at times it might get a little shoehorned, albeit not as bad as Toy Story 3. Just about every character in the movie is memorable and entertaining. Also, the animation is once more downright gorgeous. Let's talk about Dory, shall we? Her character has a gimmick of short-term memory loss, which has a lot of comedic potential, but also plenty of potential to become grating. Along with her quirky, goofball aspects, it managed not to wear out its welcome, though there might have been some occasions where it came a little close. Dory still managed to be one of Pixar's best comic reliefs. Let's just see how well they carry that into the upcoming sequel. Overall, a solid family film. This is one of Pixar's most beloved movies for a reason. And now for a little superhero action! This movie is such a unique blend of comedic animation and dark action. In fact, at times, it feels like it belongs in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Except the villain of the movie is much more memorable than most of the ones in the Marvel movies. It's unafraid of entering in a dark and gritty territory, while still having plenty of laughs as well. All of the characters are memorable, from the main family to the villain, and of course, Edna Mode. The action is great, the drama is great, everything is just great. I've heard the criticism that there's too much of Mr. Incredible and not enough of the rest of his family. A valid criticism, but I honestly can't picture the movie being nearly as effective if it didn't give the rest of the family time to build up their roles. Personally, I might say that it could have used a little more Frozone, but that's mostly a nitpick. Overall, The Incredibles is an incredible movie. After releasing several consecutive films with negative to mixed reception, Pixar took a year off from what was up until that point their annual movie releases. To make up for that, we got 2 Pixar films within the following year. While the second one brought them back to their standard mixed reviews of recent years, the first one was so loved that not only was it in the same league as most of their pre-2010s movies, it was considered one of their best ever. And yes, I'm on that bandwagon as well. It's hard to say anything about this movie that hasn't already been said. The characters are downright lovable. The story is both complex and compelling. The comedic scenes are funny. The sad scenes are heartbreaking. The world inside Riley's mind is very imaginative. The lessons taught are important to anyone growing up. Few animated movies hit so many right notes as this one does. Now, I will say it's not entirely perfect. There are a couple plot holes here and there, like how headquarters isn't so easily accessible for who are apparently in charge of Riley's entire mind. You'd think they would have VIP access or something. Hell, why is it so hard for the main emotions to properly access the rest of her mind? In fact, why is the rest of her mind so seemingly foreign to the emotions that are pretty much in charge of the place? You'd think they'd know their way around a little better. Though I guess if they did, the movie would be over a little too quickly. Also, I'm not really a fan of the scenes where we go into other people's heads. It makes them seem so one-dimensional compared to the complexity we are witnessing that is Riley. The ones shown at the end are mostly just silly, but I'm especially annoyed with the scene partway through where we go into the parents' heads. The scene they unfortunately chose for the trailers that made me a little less optimistic about this movie before I saw it. I try not to make a big stink about gender-related things, but when it comes to such obnoxious stereotypes like these, it's hard for me to enjoy. It's especially baffling since the parents themselves just seem like nice, humble people, and these over-the-top emotions they have seem to greatly contrast with that. And there's a lot more that people have complained about. Your Movie Sucks raises some interesting points on why he doesn't like the movie, and I can understand. But I don't let things like what he describes or what I previously mentioned bother me when watching this. I still find this not only one of Pixar's best movies, but one of the best animated movies of all time. Check it out and see what your emotions take from it. The year was 1995. I was about 6 years old when a certain company released its first full-length animated film and shot off the revolution that was 3D computer animation. I am, of course, talking about the amazing, unforgettable, downright near-perfect film that is Toy Story. This was the movie of my childhood. After I saw it in the theater, I waited a whole year asking my parents if it's out yet, and when I finally got it the following Christmas, I watched it so many times that I hardly even cared how weary my family was growing from it. Every time we went to somebody's house and they offered to let us watch a movie, if they had Toy Story, you knew I had to watch it. When I finally, quote, outgrew these kinds of movies, I knew well enough to stop obsessing over this one. But I still came back to it every now and then, and still enjoyed it. It's reached a point that I can practically quote it verbatim now. I remember every little detail that is said and done. So by this point, it's hard to really properly experience it anymore, since I've experienced it hundreds of times already. When you reach the point with a movie that I have with this one, you start to look past its perfections and start becoming more conscious of its flaws. Flaws such as improbabilities, minor plot holes, and goofy musical numbers that are essentially talking about what you're already seeing by yourself. That's Randy! But with all that said, it really is nitpicking. Even if I'm eternally burned out from this movie, I still can't deny how excellent it is. No movie is perfect, but very few have gotten so many things right as this one did. The characters are both lovable and memorable, the world they inhabit is imaginative, their functions and ideas are creative, the situations they get into are suspenseful, the comedy is hilarious, and the dramatic scenes are very well handled. I've always considered this a perfect movie, and while the experience is now tainted by my overwhelming familiarity with it, it is still one of my favorites. And yes, I'm sure nostalgia is a major factor in why this might be a little biased, but when a movie holds up as well as this one, there's nothing wrong with nostalgia helping it. I can barely even make it past the opening credits without getting teary-eyed from nostalgia. I cannot recommend this movie enough. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, hit the like button, and be sure to subscribe for more upcoming content. I have many plans ahead. Until then, this is Mash It and Smash It, signing off.